Job done by India. Sanjay, just first thoughts on the series. That's been hard work for them, having to come from behind, even though the last few tests have been one-sided.
Absolutely. And the last day, today's day was finally, a recognition of the fact that until now, until today's batting display of England, I felt a big difference. And the winning difference between the two teams was the quality of spin. But now, when you've seen this batting performance from England, you've also got to say that India beat England also on batting skills on these kind of surfaces. It was not just the difference in quality, but difference of batting ability as well in these conditions.
That's an interesting first point you make. If I have to go to Ian Bell, ask him for his first thoughts on an opportunity lost after England took that lead. What's the bigger disappointment here? The fact that England didn't come to India with good spinners, or the fact that England's batsmen didn't put up the runs on the board as often as they should?
I think Sanjay's just summed it up perfectly. I think there's a bit of everything, isn't there? I think the spin department quality is completely a different end. Obviously, you've got senior bowler in Ashwin and a young bowler who's come in and led the way. But yeah, England haven't been anywhere close in that department. The amount of runs we've leaked in the spin department has been quite hard, and we've had to bowl more overs of seam. And then also the batting, and I think it comes down to, again, I think listening to Sanjay through the series, it's a lot of that, again, certainly foreign players coming to India. Do you have confidence in your defence? And I think we just saw a little glimpse. And the one positive out today was Dan Lawrence at the end there. And he actually looked like, as it went on, he started to trust his defence, which is that was the only positive I can say out of today for England. And Joe Root, again, doesn't really deserve to be on a losing side. I thought he's been excellent. But yeah, the difference in the batting departments on these surfaces and the spin has been too far, really. And India deserved to win. They've been the best team consistently by quite a long way.
Okay, let's talk about the spinners. They've crafted this victory. We'll talk about the other side of it, which is the failures on batting, and maybe not just on England's side. There's some interesting numbers that come out on this being a series with the most number of ducks that we've had in a while. So two batsmen would want to try and break that down in a little while from now. But let's start by talking about the spinners. As we look at Axar Patel's debut test series and Ashwin, who went past 400 test wickets in this series. Sanjay, 59 wickets between them, 32 to Ashwin, 27 to Axar Patel. Each of them have almost got more wickets than all the England spinners combined, if you, of course, miscalculate Joe Root in that. But is that where the striking difference lies, that the fact that India's spinners were just far better in comparison?
Yes, and when you looked at India's spinners in the first test match, they didn't quite look as threatening, did they, with Shahbaz Nadeem and Ashwin as a combination. But Axar Patel coming in has made a massive difference. I know any other Indian spinner also would have made a mark, but Axar Patel has just been terrific. He has beaten Ashwin every time Ashwin's got wickets. He's got even more until this particular innings. So that has been the difference, that the pair of Ashwin and Axar versus the pair of Leach and Moin, or Leach and Best, there's been a marked difference, and that has never allowed England to come back, because these guys were relentless. You hardly saw them having a tough 30-40 minutes once they came together. All the hard work that the spinners had was in that first test match in Chennai. After that, Axar Patel and Ashwin just ruled right through the series.
If I could get you to just elaborate a little more on the Axar Patel impact. Was it something you expected? The fact that he's come in and had this sort of impact immediately in test match cricket, is it still exceeding expectations from whatever you followed of Axar?
Yes, he has exceeded expectation, but a couple of important points. One is he's always got a sharp brain as a bowler. We've seen that in white ball cricket for somebody who is classical left-arm spinner that is survived in IPL, and is a high-value IPL player. Shows that he knows how to find his way. He's smart. And when he got picked for the test team, I looked at his first-class numbers, and they were comparable with somebody like a Shahbaz Nadeem, who's a prolific wicket-taker at the domestic level. So that told you something about Axar Patel. What we saw in this series has surpassed my expectations, and I'm just delighted to see somebody who is so perfect, on these conditions, just like Jadeja was. And in his absence, Axar Patel has added another dimension, which is that, the difference between Jadeja and Axar Patel is the angle that Axar Patel bowls with. And that is why he's got so many. People say, look to play the straight ball. But that ball isn't straight. It's coming at an angle inside, to you. So those are the tough ones. So when it's coming in an angle towards you, you always sort of play inside the line, which means the off stump is always exposed, and he gets the odd ball to turn. So that becomes a real problem. Having said that, Axar Patel will himself confess that at the domestic level, I'm sure he had to work harder to get his wickets than he had to work at this in this series, and that's purely because of the kind of surfaces that he would have seen at the test level as opposed to what he gets at the domestic level.
Yep, fair enough. But this test has allowed us to perhaps put a little more praise on Axar Patel and not only keep the conversation around pitches. And really, perhaps there was a great opportunity for England. India were without Ravindra Jadeja, who's such a big player for them in test series at home. If Axar wasn't fit, you saw what the next best option was. England seemed to have had the answers for Shahbaz Nadeem, albeit on a less challenging pitch in the first test. What happened then was the minute Axar was injected? Why did it stun England to a way that, I mean, this is a guy playing his debut test series. Were England not prepared for it? If they would have surely prepared for someone like Ravindra Jadeja if they're coming to India, why did they not have the answers to Axar even 3 tests later?
It's a good question. Like you said, I don't think they've been shocked by it. I think they just haven't had the skills to be able to cope with it. I think I saw a stat on the TV coverage saying in the deliveries he's bowled in this series, it's nearly 70% dot balls. I mean, that to me screams that England just haven't found a way of rotating the strike or putting him under any pressure. And then when you've got Ashwin at the other end, as we've talked about, batting and bowling is about partnerships. And if anything Ashwin missed in that first test match was his partner at the other end, because runs were quite easy to come by for England. What they've got now is a guy that's supported Ashwin more so actually, and even been more threatening at times. But England just haven't had an answer to the pace. His pace has been outstanding on these surfaces. He's made it very, very hard. As we saw England, they like to sweep. A lot of these players, they're not going to come down the ground and hurt you generally straight. They're going to look to sweep, and they found him particularly hard. I think there was a big dismissal. He got Joe Root sweeping, caught at 45. I think that sent a bit of worry into that England dressing room that Joe Root was finding him hard, and all of a sudden that sort of snowballed, as it can do in Test match cricket. And that's the beauty of Test match cricket. As a batsman, you're not just facing him once and then you don't see him again. You've got to keep coming back, keep finding ways to answer things that are hard as a batsman. And I think Axar has just been outstanding in his areas. Like I said, I think you can see that can be transferable, certainly into English conditions, where yes, it might not be the wickets, but he will be able to do a job for that team, and then the seam has become more of a threat. So fantastic. As I keep saying, when I watch him bowl, I just can't believe he's played 3 test matches. He looks like he's been doing it for years. So it just shows again the strength in depth that India have got domestically, that can step into the international scene and just look like it's another day at the office. And I think obviously with the IPL, these guys are used to massive games, big pressure. So it's just another day.
Raunak, just a quick point. Let's not also assume that life would have been easier for the English batsman had Axar not played and Jadeja played, because Jadeja would have made the same kind of impact and created the same kind of problems. And the only difference between the two is a higher release point for Axar Patel, which gives him a little more bounce, and the angle that I was talking about on turning pitches that actually becomes a real nightmare. He's also, like Jadeja, very difficult to step out to play the sweeps, or the very similar in nature, where perhaps Jadeja is slightly better than Axar Patel is having left-handers, good left-hand batsmen out bowl from the rough.
All right, fair enough. Yep, absolutely. No question that Jadeja would have asked similar, if not more, questions of England than Axar did. There was an opportunity if Axar wasn't fit, like he wasn't for the first test, then we would have waited to see what India would have come up with. But let's look at the other side of this now. And England's batting is something that we need to break down and try and understand. We touched upon it a little on our tea time show today about Joe Root being the paper over the cracks, perhaps that one batsman who, if India find the answers to, then all of a sudden this is a batting unit that falls. Now, it's not a great place to be, Belly. And England have a big home summer coming up. They're obviously planning for the Ashes. India are coming as well. Where does England's batting go from here?
It's a really good question. I'm assuming from inside that England camp that we're talking now about not panicking. There are some talented young players there. I think they've been exposed to this tour in these conditions. And I will always say, I won't be overcritical of them. I know how hard it is, and it is hard. What they've got to find a way now is learning from these mistakes, learning from this tour and becoming better. So I think the importance of this summer now for English cricket, certainly this batting unit, is going to be massively important. They've got 2 test matches against New Zealand. They're really, really important for the batting unit going into then an India series again. And when you're playing test match cricket, and you're playing against the same teams. There's little individual battles going on all the time. So these players are still going to have the same attack, yes, on different surfaces, but the same questions will still be asked next summer. So it's really important to get back. I think some of them are one format players, so test match players. So the importance of going back domestically, they're probably all going to get 5 or 6 championship games in first class cricket. So to go back, yes, learn from what they've done, but quickly get back to scoring runs, big runs, to make sure the next test match or two, they start picking up. Because it's important after having been there myself, when you haven't played well in a series, the importance, the next series, you have to hit the ground running and play well. So I think that's where they are. There'll be an air of calmness, I think, and not get too carried away. This was always going to be a tough tour. I don't think we expected England to win. The first test match probably threw everything a little bit up in the air, that we didn't see that coming. So a bit of calmness, but it's important that they do get back quite quickly from this and get back to scoring big runs.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.